What's good? Very good. Gonna let some people come in here. Welcome, everybody. Big Ten Championship. Oh, it's exciting. Here we go. We are at the We Are In here in Phillipsburg. Oh, and there was just a huge turnover for Quinn Ewers in the SEC Championship game. Georgia's looking solid at the moment. Man, welcome in to the Behind the Wall pregame show. I am your host, former Penn State offensive lineman Landon Tangwall. We are talking Penn State, Oregon in the Big Ten Championship. Penn State's first time playing Oregon since 1995. That was the last time. Big Keith Goon Conlon was the last person on the Penn State roster to be on the field and face Oregon. So it's been a long time coming. It should be a really good game. I'm excited for this one. Oregon is the number one team in the nation for a reason. We're doing a Q&A, so make sure you guys, if you are on Twitter, on YouTube, anything, leave comments below. Any questions you have, we will get to them. We'll be live for about 45 minutes, and we're going to go ahead and bring on Tom Bradley, former Penn State defensive coordinator, a little bit later. We'll talk a little bit Penn State stories and how do we stop Dylan Gabriel. It's going to be fun. I will tell you guys where we are at right now. There's a lot on the line. The number one team in the nation is what we could be. And also, if we win today, we are talking a trip guaranteed to the Rose Bowl. Because of how guaranteed bowl trips work for the teams that win their conference, if you're seed 1 through 4, you obviously have a bye week. There's still historic ties from the bowl game that have to do with that. So Penn State, because they're the Big Ten champs, if they were to win tonight, they would go to the Rose Bowl. Now, what's interesting about that, number one, if that's what Penn State ends up, they play the winner of 8 versus 9. Right now, 9 is Tennessee, 8 is Ohio State. So it is possible that Penn State could be playing Ohio State in the Rose Bowl if Penn State were to win today. So a lot on the line, and it's going to be fun. And I'll tell you what, Texas looks like they may lose. So if we were to win today, we would be undisputed number one if Texas were to lose. That's kind of the only thought process. They might be able to be ranked number one ahead of us. All right, so let's talk a little bit about Oregon for a second. Well, and actually something that's interesting, the rematch of the Big Ten Championship will be happening. It was just announced about a couple hours ago. Penn State and the Big Ten put out an announcement. Oregon, Penn State at Beaver Stadium in 2025 is set for September 27th. So I think that's week 4 of the season. We will be seeing Oregon, and they do not make West Coast teams play noon games when they're traveling cross country for the most part. I don't think they will do it with Oregon. So it would be an exciting opportunity to have a Oregon whiteout in September. That would be really fun. But let's talk about who this Oregon team is. Number one team in the nation, and they are that way for a reason. Dylan Gabriel is a Heisman candidate for a reason. I wasn't sit back and I was watching him. I turned on the tape, and obviously I knew he was a good player. I had seen him play in some games, but a lot of times he was playing in a way that was whatever. It was later in the night. They play on the West Coast, that type of thing. Didn't get to see. I turned on the tape. He is one of the most dynamic quarterbacks at creating space for himself, at manipulating the rushers that are coming at him in the pocket and buying himself a little bit of time, all while keeping his eyes downfield. So, I mean, he's a really good quarterback. Now, how we can kind of contain that, literally and figuratively, the answer is Abdul Carter. He has to have the game of his life. He's been having the games of his life. He has had multiple games this year with 2 sacks and 4 TFLs as his stat line. He has been hot. We're going to need it from him tonight, but we're going to need it from the rest of the defensive line as well. I'm looking at the 9 Dennis Sutton, who got banged up a little bit halfway through the season, but at one point was leading the college football, everybody in college football, in TFL. So he was disruptive in the run game. Now, looking on the interior for Penn State, Zane Durant, Josiah Izzard, and Devon Elise. That is what we have at defensive tackle tonight. Akeem Beamon left the team about a little over halfway through the season, and Alonzo Ford is out with a long-term injury, is what Coach Franklin called it up to this point. So what that means is we basically have 3 defensive tackles that are not freshmen. Those guys have to show up, because as much as Oregon is an explosive, fun, creative offense, and you think, hey, they're going to stretch it down the field, because we'll talk about their wide receivers in a second and how creative they are. But Dylan Gabriel in this run game is really kind of the key part of this entire offense and what makes it work. Jordan James is a underrated running back that has over 1,000 yards on the season, 13 touchdowns for the Oregon Ducks, but isn't talked about that much just because of how elite the passing attack is for the Oregon Ducks. But you let him take over a game in this Oregon offense, they're okay with relying on their run game. So I will give you this stat. In the first 7 games, Oregon and Dylan Gabriel really passed for over 240 yards every single game. In these past 3 games, he hasn't passed for over 220 yards. Now, there's a couple things, and I gave that in my pregame show, if you heard, but there's a couple reasons for that. One, Tez Johnson was out. That was one of his star wide receivers, so it does factor into it a little bit. But what that tells me is even with a wide receiver down, Oregon is comfortable with leaning on their run game. They won't just say, hey, we need to pass the ball to win. We can run the ball with Jordan James and our above-average offensive line and grind out some wins. So Devon Elise, Keziah Izzard, and Zane Durant. Zane Durant's been playing lights out football. Look, I love what he's been doing up front, pass and run. He is really dynamic. Let's see what we got. Leave any comments you guys have below. Let's see. Team stats are very close, but don't paint an accurate picture. Yeah, I think, look, at the end of the day, Penn State, we're the underdogs coming into this thing. That is the fact of the matter, and that's okay. I think you play better that way. It kind of feels like a all odds against us type of thing. And as I have Christmas trees around me, I'm surrounded by Joe Paterno over here. Hunt, I should probably know who that Hunt is, man. That's probably a mistake. Comment below, who was 26 Hunt? I know somebody knows in here. Nick Singleton today goes, yeah, so for me, Nick Singleton is honestly the X factor of this game. If Nick Singleton can have a big day, not only in the rushing attack, but also in the receiving game, that is where Nick Singleton has really kind of taken that next step this year as a player, is that he was really able to be utilized. There's multiple games where he was the leading the receiver, or if not Tyler Warren, he was the second leading receiver. So we've seen that a lot from him. I say this as, Georgia's backup quarterback throws an interception. Man, the SEC, they're not putting out this football today by Georgia and Texas. It's not like it's been a good defensive battle. We sit 16-13 right now. It's just been sloppy football, fumbles, turnovers, missed field goals. It's been a sloppy SEC game. You got Tony Hunt. That was it. Tony Hunt. Thank you, guys. Do we know why Hakeem Beamon left the team? Look, we don't need to get into specifics, but what I will say is, if part of it is that you are not playing that much and you leave, and then basically you leave, and the guy that you left because is injured, and then you could have been playing, well, now you feel kind of dumb about yourself. It sucks. So that just shows always stick through any adversity if you're a football player and maybe you aren't getting the type of playing time you want. Well, man, I know. Someone said, Landon, I can't breathe. I feel the same way. This is an intense game where we sit right now, and an opportunity to be the number 1 team in the nation for the first time since 1997. We were close a couple times. We've been number 2 multiple times since then, but not been number 1 since well before I was born. So an opportunity where, and I think it's cool to talk about this season of college football with the new 12-team playoff, the opportunity you have, because we already sat here once against Ohio State early in the season and said, hey, everything's on the line. The number 1 team, Big Ten championship, seeding opportunities. We lost that game. But we came back, and it's still all here. What are we, 5-6 weeks later from that Ohio State game? And it's still all there. Number 1 team in the nation, obviously playing in the Big Ten championship, and an opportunity to be very highly seeded for a national championship. So I just think it kind of shows how forgiving this new college football landscape is, but also how everybody is good essentially now, or maybe everybody's just more even. It has kind of brought NIL, transfer portal, has brought everything down to where, let's say you are a second string linebacker at Georgia. Well, I'm going to go play at Missouri and be the starter. Well, Missouri's going to do that with a couple different players. They start to get better, and that is kind of how the transfer portal is evening things out. And you're not seeing a defined number 1 team really, except this Oregon offense and this Oregon defense that we were playing today. It is a group of guys that, like I said, it is clear and far and away, I think Oregon is the undisputed number 1 team in America. That is no question. And they obviously pretty battle tested. But I think that's where Penn State comes into this game, being more battle-tested than any team in the nation. Let's walk through a little bit of Penn State's schedule. West Virginia, you go in there and you're getting a lot of flack. You got the whole Fox crew was picking West Virginia to win before the game. You sit in the locker room for 2.5 hours, that tiny little cramped away locker room. You come out, you don't miss a beat. You handle West Virginia. You got Bowling Green the next week. You're down 10 points at halftime. You fight back. You handle that. USC, Drew Aller comes out of his shell and really shows you he is a different quarterback. Wisconsin, we lose Drew Aller. We have to bring in Bo Perbula. We still find a way to win. Minnesota, learning from your mistakes. Ohio State, it felt like we were a little too conservative. We were playing a little afraid. It was the opposite in Minnesota. We went for it on 4th down 3 times on the final drive. I would say, it's a quote Mike Tomlin, that is the opposite of living in our fears. We do not live in our fears, and James Franklin is not living in his fears at the moment, obviously taking his chances as they come. And look, that's the mindset that Penn State has to come into tonight with, in my opinion. It needs to be, we don't have anything to lose because we don't. Where we are right now, we win. Like I said, we have all that in front of us, and there is a lot. You win this Big Ten championship that has NIL implications, that has recruiting implications, that has far-reaching implications of things for James Franklin can get done for the program. If he brings home, trust me, when a head coach wins a Big Ten championship like this and you beat the #1 team in the nation, that gives you some room to make demands in the offseason of get some more NIL money, get some more funding, get some more whatever. I want a new renovation of whatever it may be, the weight room, that type of thing. When you win these big games, gives you room to do that. So it has far-reaching implications if Franklin wins this game. But at the same time, we're playing with house money. If we lose, we're 5, 6, maybe 7 if we were to lose by a wide margin. Now, for the most part, I like that seeding. I talked about the outcome. If we are #1 in the nation, we are facing right now the winner of 8 versus 9, which would be Ohio State or Tennessee. Now, if we are #5, we're probably most likely we're facing Arizona State. Could be Boise State. There's a little bit of talk of who they're going to switch in and out between the 4 seed and the 12 seed because those are both automatic bids for the highest rated conference winners. Now, the question is, if we get put at the 6 seed or the 7 seed, it starts to get a little bit muddier. If we are at the 6 seed, 11 would be Alabama. Alabama at home in Beaver Stadium on the 21st is very real possibility with a loss today. Just saying that could being the #5 seed is honestly the most favorable outcome. And I think that's why some people were saying, hey, we don't even want to play in the Big Ten championship. Give us the 5 seed and let us go. I get the sentiment about that. But this is something I was talking about with Keith Goon-Conlon, who won the 94 Rose Bowl and obviously was undefeated, but they were not crowned national champions, one of the best Penn State teams ever. When you have the opportunity to win something like a Big Ten championship and be the #1 team in the nation, you have an opportunity to be remembered for something, especially around Penn State. I mean, let's sit here and talk about it. You guys tell me in the comment sections if I'm wrong. How many teams of Penn State do you remember from a standpoint of like, I'm recalling them once a month, like that type of thing? Because in my opinion, you remember the 82 team, the 86 team, the 94 team, the 05 team, and the 16 team. Outside of that, there's about 5 or 6 Penn State teams. And I know for older people, you can go a little further back. But for the most part, anybody around this age, those are the 5 or 6 Penn State teams that you remember. Tonight is an opportunity, and you see this as a player, for you to be remembered for something, to win a Big Ten championship, to carve your last name into a piece of Penn State history. So that's what this means today. Shout out to you guys. We got over 700 people right now in this live chat. You guys appreciate you guys coming through. I'm as nervous as anybody where we sit right now. We got a little over probably 30 minutes to kick off. My guess is we'll go about 8:12. That's always kind of been my quandary with college football. We kick off like 12 minutes late. The NFL, they kick off when they say they're going to kick off. College football, it is not at all the same. Let me tell you what. So Penn State's getting off here in about probably 40 minutes. All right, let's talk a little bit about this Oregon roster. And listen, something that's different for me from Penn State is this roster is bought and paid for at Oregon. And we know that. Dan Lanning has had all the resources and some. Coach Franklin came out this week and basically said, hey, salute to Dan Lanning. He's doing a great job. I wish I had his resources. That's what Franklin wanted to say when he had his press conference this week. And I don't blame him, because Dan Lanning does have unlimited resource. He got told by Phil Knight, the owner of Nike, hey, you have a blank check. Go out and get who you want. Well, guess what? Oregon just slotted the #1 recruiting class in the nation this past Wednesday on signing day. So they did it. They have the money. They had a 5-star cornerback. I saw he told On3, yeah, me and Phil Knight were talking. He's going to create my shoe. How do we compete with the owner of Nike telling recruits that he's going to make them a shoe? I put that on Twitter. Some of you guys said, hey, creamery flavors. And I'm not even ready to give that. If we start giving recruits creamery flavors, there's going to be hell to pay, because I'll start protesting that. There's a lot of players and coaches that get that before any recruits. So I don't know, man. It's a hard battle that we're fighting. But Oregon is also taking some of that money, and they are winning in the transfer portal right now. More than half of their roster is from the transfer portal, from their quarterback, Dylan Gabriel, their Heisman candidate, all 3 starting wide receivers, Tess Johnson, Evan Stewart, and Trayshawn Holden, all transfer portal guys. Offensive line, they got 1 or 2 guys, but then their defense, all 5 defensive backs for Oregon are transfers. I mean, like, come on. It's pretty much everybody. And then also Jordan Birch is a transfer. They got some other, Derek Harmon, who is someone to look out for in the middle. We'll talk in 1 second about him and kind of the threat he poses to Penn State's run game. But these are all transfers making up their team. Dan Lanning went out, got some guys. Now, I think the good news for that is, I will tell you, there's a little bit of a brotherhood. And Penn State has been one of the best teams at retaining everybody. You look around, we don't lose very many guys to the transfer portal. We don't have guys coming in demanding, hey, if you don't give us more money, we're going to leave. They understand that there is a bigger task at hand here if you are Penn State. And there is a Penn State brotherhood that goes a little bit further, I would say, than just any other team. And, who knows how long we're going to keep that, because I don't know how long you can keep that landscape. I'm going to be honest, in this world of college football. But you got to damn well try. And Coach Franklin is doing that up to this point. I really have enjoyed watching him, treat college football the right way. Oh, so Georgia, side note real quick, let's sidestep this to talk some college football playoffs. Carson Beck is out right now. He got injured, knocked out of the SEC championship game. If for some reason Georgia loses tonight, does Georgia get Florida Stated like last year? Do they get the Florida State treatment? Jordan Travis, Florida State starting quarterback, was injured, out for the year. And because of that, they got the boot. They did not get to be in the playoffs because the playoff committee said, hey, you're not half of the team you are without Jordan Travis. Now, in my opinion, I don't think Carson Beck is that good. I think anybody can play quarterback for the Georgia Bulldogs right now, with the playmakers they have around them. But just an interesting conversation kind of to have there if you are an SEC team. Okay, now I was talking about some of the wide receivers. Let's get into this real quick. Let's talk some Oregon and drop any conversations you guys have right now on Oregon and Penn State. Let's get into some nitty-gritty here while we have about 25 minutes right now left. So Evan Stewart is, in my opinion, their best all-around wide receiver. Watch for him. He's a speedster. He's like he's about 5'11", 6 foot. They will go deep to Evan Stewart, but he can go up and win those 50-50 balls very easily. Now, Trayshawn Holden is their big body wide receiver. He's 6'3". He is a go up, pick it up off the top of your head, but also has some sneaky speed. He was at Alabama and transferred to Oregon. It's went fairly well for him. And then someone that was injured, Tez Johnson. He has played a lot of football for Oregon last year. Their leading receiver is also their leading receiver this year. He got a little banged up, and that was kind of something that everybody was talking about, the Wisconsin-Oregon game. And it was very close. They won 16-13, Oregon did. And look, it was definitely Oregon's probably worst game of the season. Oregon played pretty bad at the beginning against Idaho and Boise State with some close ones. But Oregon is still played a not so great game against Wisconsin. Now, if you mention that, Oregon fans will very quickly come and let you know that, hey, it's not their fault. They were on their 8th straight game without a bye week. We had players injured. They had Jordan Birch and Tez Johnson, which is star wide receiver, were injured. So I get it. It's a valid argument. I playing 8 straight games is tough on the body. But nonetheless, you still had a close game, and Wisconsin showed a little bit of how to slow you down. And at the end of the day, it's really not some grand formula. I'll tell you what Wisconsin did. They made routine tackles routinely. They made them when they needed to make them, and they didn't let those routine plays become explosive plays. And that is the problem. When you have an offense in Oregon that wants to do these quick screens, these pitches out to Jordan James, their running back, these dynamic end arounds to their speedy wide receivers, if those plays go for 4 to 5 yards, that's okay. Even if they break it for 8 yards, but you can't let those plays turn into 25, 30-yard explosive plays and even touchdowns. That's where you start to find yourself in some trouble if you are Penn State at this point. So the offense is a dynamic group, but my prediction really, I think they will come out and kind of just run the ball. That's what I say. I think they're going to test this Penn State defensive front because, look, if you look at the film from Ohio State, Penn State, what do I see as a coach if I'm Oregon? I see Ohio State said, we can't really pass the ball too well. So you know what? We're going to turn to the run game, and we're going to see if we can't move them up front. And they did just that. And that was even back when we had a lot more depth. Now we're talking we have 3 defensive tackles we need to rotate. Beginning of the year, we had 5 to 6 guys that felt like we could play, but injuries, a couple guys leave. Next thing you know, we really are not that deep at defensive tackle at all. And maybe, who knows, maybe Smith Bilbert can also play some defensive tackles. I don't know if we'll move him around, but that is the way that we need to tackle against this Oregon offense to contain them. And we're also going to have to get some pressure. I mean, look, Dylan Gabriel, like I said, if we give Dylan Gabriel 4 to 5 seconds and it's just really no pressure at all, we'll lose this game. I mean, that's the simple fact of kind of where we sit right now. These wide receivers are too talented to allow that to happen. So Matthew says, yeah, Tez has been a dynamic player. Also, Ducks played 2 teams back-to-back that came off a bye. Yeah, the Oregon Ducks did have to play a couple. I think they might even play a 3rd team that was coming off a bye. I mean, they had a real rough kind of back end of their schedule, not necessarily hard games, but just their team being tested. And I will say, talking about Dan Lanning and what he means to the Oregon roster, from a player standpoint, I've talked about being around Manny Diaz and what a player does when they want to play for a coach, when they have that fire in them of loving a coach, from that coach meaning something to them. It takes the team to a next level. If you think about that Penn State defense and how they played with Manny Diaz, that meant something. You could see it. They would get the ball and go over and hand it to Manny Diaz when they got an interception, stuff like that. That is the type of coach that Dan Lanning is, and that's how the Oregon players feel about him. So we definitely are going to have Oregon have some miscues. We're going to have to create some turnovers. There's going to be a need to kind of be this overall effort from the team of explosive plays, keeping those to a minimum, keep a cap on Oregon. Look, it's going to happen. Look, we're playing the best team in the nation. We have to be okay with there being some ups and downs in this game. And that's why I think we're so ready, because we've been so battle tested. We are used to having to battle through that type of adversity in a game. And like I said, it's going to happen in this game. This is a good team. They are going to get us at moments. And that's something that Coach Franklin says in the locker room all the time, because it kind of humanizes the game a little bit when they make a big play. It's like, oh, yeah, Coach Franklin just said in the locker room, they're going to make plays, we're going to make plays. So let's respond. So that's kind of the thought process. Texas is lining up this kick right now to see if they can't send this SEC championship game to overtime. We got a snap, hold, kick. Looks like it's good. We're going to have overtime. So we should be good. As long as they don't go into 8 overtimes like Georgia Tech, we'll be out of there with plenty of time for the Big Ten championship. But a little extra football, it's looking like, in the SEC championship. Should be some good stuff there. Now, one thing I will say I want to talk about on Penn State's offensive side, Drew Aller. He needs to play a game today where he takes calculated risk. And what I mean by that, I don't want him being careless with the football, but I want him to stretch the field. I want him to take those shots to Trey Wallace, take those shots to Tyler Warren, throw it up. We've seen what happens when you throw up to Tyler Warren, really only good things. I'm surprised we haven't done it more. Give him those opportunities, line him up out at wide receiver, and give him some shots, because, look, this offense is going to go through Tyler Warren today. That is the no question about it. If you're Kotelnicki, you're not going to ever make that mistake again of not going through Tyler Warren. Now, the question is, what's the best way of getting him the ball? Because I will say, the good news, talking now, switching gears to Penn State offense, Oregon defense, Tyler Warren got taken out of that Ohio State game just a little bit. And I think one of the reasons why was because, number one, Ohio State decided to blanket him. And they said, hey, we're going to take Tyler Warren out of this game. But Ohio State also had a safety by the name of Caleb Downs, who is the best safety in America. Now, he was able to cover Tyler Warren one-on-one. And I don't think there are many people on this earth that can cover Tyler Warren one-on-one, but he is one of those guys. And it kind of took Tyler off a little bit. I mean, Tyler still had 80 all-purpose yards and could have had more, but that is the type of impact that a good player can have. I don't think Oregon has that one player. So if they want to take away Tyler Warren, they better dedicate 2 to 3 guys on a play and truly blanket him. But still, you're going to get him his touches. And I think Tyler Warren will get anywhere from 2 to 3 touches on the first drive. I think there will be an emphasis of the offense of, hey, we need to live through Tyler Warren. Now, talking about our wide receivers, I pretty much have said it every time up to this point. Every single pregame, it feels like I've said, hey, we need the wide receivers to show up today, but we need it tenfold. We have to have it. There's no question, because they are eventually going to take away Tyler Warren. This is a good Oregon defense that we're going to talk about in a second, but that front seven is legit. Devin Jackson will guard Tyler Warren. Yeah, but Devin Jackson, he's still not Caleb Downs. Listen, I'm sorry. But and last note on before we fully switch sides, I do want to say, missing KJ Winston today really hurts. What we talked about, making those routine tackles around the line of scrimmage, nobody better than that in the business than KJ Winston. So unfortunate to not have him, but that's been the name of the game for Penn State this year, fighting through adversity, fighting through injuries. Because now at this point, we have a starting safety, starting D tackle, starting right tackle. We've lost 3 guys to season-ending injuries. It's a tough game, and you have to roll with the punches. But I haven't heard us complain very much at all about that, honestly. And I think good on us. I mean, like you said, you can't sit there and complain. You can't act like that. But I'm just saying we deserve a little bit of credit. It's not sitting here, woe is me. This is a team that's finding ways to still win and not looking for excuses to kind of pop out there, because you could do that if you're Penn State up to this point, because it's been hard. Now, let's talk about this this defensive line for Oregon right now. One thing I will say, their pass rush is good. Mateo Uiagalelei, Jordan Birch, both really good defensive ends. They've combined for 19 sacks on the season. They've been all over the place. Now, I will say this, fun fact, I'm not going to share his name, but I had a friend that I'm friends with in the tackle in the Big Ten. He's a starting tackle. I won't give what school, but he hit me up after I posted some stuff about Oregon's D-line, and he said they're not that good in pass rush. As far as their moves, where they succeed in pass rush is their twist and their stunts. That is where they get successful at. So coming straight from the mouth of someone, and I will tell you, he played them this year, is also a hint for you. So I'm not too worried. Their defensive ends, Mateo Uiagalelei and Jordan Birch, are big guys. Jordan Birch is 6'6", 295 at the end. And he's that because he will play 5-tech. He'll bump down. He'll play 4-eye. So he'll basically play on the inside of the tackle, almost on the guard. He'll bounce around. So these are bigger guys. And I think that's a good matchup for Penn State, is not having a speed rusher. Like, I'd much rather have Jordan Birch and Mateo Uiagalelei than I would an Abdul Carter type build of player versus Nolan Rucci. I think Nolan Rucci does better with a bigger body power rusher than, say, a speed rusher that isn't really looking to get touched. Because Nolan Rucci sometimes will get in a leaning little position, and he doesn't always find himself in the best spots. That's a great way to kind of maximize his opportunity against a bigger pass rusher in both of these guys. Is he can lean on them a little bit because they're not looking to do as much finesse. It's a lot of hands-on work. All right, now in the middle, big Derek Harmon. I am a little nervous about this one. Number 55, look for him to be disruptive early. They got him from Michigan State. When I looked, I said, I didn't really remember Derek Harmon from Michigan State, but I remember him now. I watched the tape. He is one hell of a defensive tackle, big 55 in the middle, not only just in the run game, but also in the pass game. He gets really disruptive, and really Nick Dawkins, Sal Wormley, and Vega Ioane have a task today. And it's not even just Derek Harmon. They have a couple other guys. I can't even get into all of their players that they have on the defensive line because they rotate so often. I mean, they will play anywhere from 12 to 14 defensive linemen at a time. And that's even the offensive tackle that I was talking about earlier that will remain nameless. He also said, hey, that's another piece of the hardest thing they do is you'll be 8 plays into a drive as an offense, and then they just bring in a new set of defensive linemen and then a new set. And so maybe they're not as good, but when you're in the third quarter and you're tired and it's a fresh set of defensive ends coming in, look out because, listen, I'm tired. Yeah, Caldwell, that is it. Caldwell, Washington. Yeah, they got some really good. I'm wondering if this is an Oregon fan in here, my man Matthew Maximus. But this should be fun. We just reached over 900 viewers in the live stream. Shout out you guys. You guys are absolutely killing it. Appreciate you guys supporting me. We will. I think we're gonna get Tom Bradley on here in a second. If we find Scrap around here, we'll bring him on into the Santa set. I got Joe Paterno right behind me. A little blue and white Christmas tree for good luck today. And I listen. I didn't pick this shirt out just for any reason. If you are watching on the live stream here, I got the Victory Smells Like Roses shirt because if we win today and win this Big Ten championship, we are headed to a Rose Bowl. And an opportunity to be Big Ten champions, Rose Bowl champs, number one team in the nation, and then you got an opportunity as well ahead of you of being a national champion. Oh, man. A lot on the title. I can't remember the last time there was this much riding on a Penn State game, and where we are at right now. I really can't. Looks like Texas Georgia overtime is starting at the moment. But overall, in the final notes on Tyler Warren, I expect us to put him everywhere. Tight end, wide receiver, quarterback, offensive line, running back. It don't matter. He will get it done. Now, I think overall, I would say my favorite matchup as a whole probably is, if we're just talking, where can Penn State win? I think it's Abdul Carter. I think that is where getting after Dylan Gabriel is where Wisconsin found some success. Not only were they making those routine tackles, they honed in on Gabriel and not letting him dance around in the pocket. Because I will tell you, there's going to be times today where our defensive backs are going to have to cover for 7 to 8 seconds because he will roll around. He will create enough time where it gets really difficult to lock in on a wide receiver. And we're talking about wide receivers that are, number one, used to the scramble work. We call that. It basically turns into a scramble drill once Dylan Gabriel gets out of the pocket, starts looking downfield, and guys just start running around zigzagging, trying to create a little bit of space and getting open for their quarterback. When you're doing that with guys that run 4.3 40s and Tez Johnson, Evan Stewart, and Trayshawn Holden, well, it starts to get really hard to contain those people. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on where we are at right now. And then one last thing on the Oregon offense, too. Oregon has 4 wide receivers with a 50-yard touchdown reception. We only have 2 of those. So that just shows, the straight up, the ability to have 4 guys that are that dangerous out there on the football field at a time just provides a lot of opportunity for Oregon to do things that they want and mess with Penn State's eyes. So Stein is Oregon's offensive coordinator, and they love to get creative. They love to make it hard on a defense's eyes. They want to just freeze you for half a second. They'll do a lot of backfield action fakes. So you think Kotelnicki is creative? Welcome to my man Matt Stein, because he is Stein can get real fun in that backfield for Oregon, and especially with someone with Dylan Gabriel, who has been really good all year. Now, the one downside to Dylan Gabriel is that he will stare down routes sometimes. He will really get overly, just locked in on, say, a post route, and he's going to throw it no matter what. So that is the one thing where he can get a little dangerous, and he also has 4 interceptions in the red zone today. So up to this point, I would love to see him throw us one. If we can get Drew Aller the ball once or twice in plus territory, that's where this game changes, I think, really, if you are Penn State. So, we got what? A little over 10 minutes to kick off. SEC is going to lead us right up in. What? Oh, man, guys, I am feeling some nerves. How you guys feeling? Let me know in the chat below. Gabriel doesn't miss targets when they are open. He definitely locks in fast. Yeah, look, like I said, he is one of the more accurate quarterbacks. That Ohio State game, I saw him release from his own 40-yard line down to the opposite 10. It is really, really impressive. So we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. I'm going to bring on Tom Bradley. We're going to talk a little bit of Penn State football real quick, and then we will get you guys right into this game. So be right back in 1 second, and we will get you guys a little bit more info on Penn State, Oregon.
The Center Hall Farm Center Hall Farm Store has been serving Center County and beyond for well over a half century. A small family business, the Center Hall Farm Store specializes in animal nutrition and manufactures its feed fresh using local ingredients. Get the best in horse, cow, pig, chicken, and bird feeds. If you're not already a customer, stop in and see why so many of your neighbors are. The Center Hall Farm Store at 110 West Allison Street in Center Hall, or call us at 814-364-1393.
A lot has changed about State College. One thing that hasn't is W.C. Clark's Coffee Roasters on 234 East Calder Way. 30 different varieties of specialty coffee beans sourced from over 25 countries and roasted with love each morning in Happy Valley for over 45 years. They'll ship their fresh roasted coffee from their doorstep to yours. Order online at statecollegecoffee.com. That's statecollegecoffee.com.
Two of the top names in local printing have combined to serve you better. King Printing of State College has merged with theprinters.com, forming one of the 400 largest printers in America. Combining traditional offset printing and digital workflow techniques, theprinters.com can print, assemble, package, and ship to anywhere in the world, all with the same high quality customers have known and trusted for over 50 years. Buy local and save. Get started today at theprinters.com.
Ready to be part of something bigger? Come pave the road to success at Glen O'Habaker and discover a career where your hard work and determination can build a bigger, better future. Our team believes we can build a stronger future together. Join us at Glen O'Habaker, where we value teamwork on the field and on the job. Go to GOHcareers.com to apply. GOHcareers.com. And best of luck to all the Center County sports teams all season long from everyone at Glen O'Habaker.
All right, welcome back into the Behind the Wall pregame show here at the We Are in Phillipsburg. I'm now joined by Tom Bradley, former Penn State defensive coordinator. Tom, thank you so much for coming in. You excited for today's game?
I didn't have much choice, Dr. Pat Romano. He said, hey, you got to sit down. And then I'm just a little nervous here because you got the Coach Paterno.
I know, Coach Paterno.
Behind me, and I'm not getting yelled at. So
I know. That's what some of the players sit in here. Sorry, we got some technical difficulties in here. 1 second, guys. Bear with me. All right, you got us? I'm just going to leave it like that. All right, sorry about that, Scrap.
Yeah, so we got the stand-up Joe behind us, and I'm not getting yelled at. So
I know. I've had a couple. Brandon Noble says the same thing. He's like, when I see him, I get a little nervous. I look over my shoulder, and I'm like, shit, is that coach right there? He's going to yell at me. Oh. We're getting the Penn State. You're welcome. That's Pat Romano with the We Are chant here at the We Are in Phillipsburg. Shout out Pat Romano. We got to give him a little shout out. He's going to be running for the Board of Trustees.
Absolutely. He's running for the board, and you couldn't ask for a better choice.
Really, because he is someone that deserves it. He cares about Nittany Nation, cares about Penn State. So I think you and I both say we're happy to have his back and graduating here in 2 weeks' time. So I'll be able to vote on things of that nature. I'm excited for that. That should be cool. And get into that. But
congratulations.
Well, thank you very much.
You're graduating. That's great.
It's big time. It's, the grand experiment. Come on now. You know what it's about.
Yeah,
so
sure.
Scrap, I do want to let's get into this real quick. We'll talk a little bit of Oregon right at the end. But first, let's talk about some of the big games that obviously you were in with Coach Paterno, but also some fantastic teams. What's it like going into a game where, let's say, how many games have you been in where you're a very good team? I think Penn State's a great team today, but you're playing an even better team. How many times do you say you've been in that scenario where you think, okay, we got some good guys, but where it's basically David versus Goliath? This Oregon team doesn't seem to have too many holes in it. Have you found yourself in many of those scenarios in the past?
Yeah, lots of times. But you know what? It's good because it gives you the opportunity to prove how good you are. You want to play good teams. You want to be a part of that. And, obviously the games that people talk about that stand out are the 82 national championship and the 1986 national championship. And it's funny that we're talking about 82 because I just was talking to Kurt Warner today, who had a little part in helping us win that game.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. He did. And, what's funny is I said to people, some people are saying, hey, because of the bracket, you don't want to be in the Big Ten championship, this, that, and the third. It means something to be remembered. to be a team that was remembered? Because like you just said, you brought up the 82, the 86. And I was saying earlier on the show, at the end of the day, there's about 5 or 6 Penn State teams that are truly remembered. Where we say, I mean, 82, 86, 94, 05, and 16, maybe to a certain extent. Those are the teams at Penn State that are remembered. Today, you have an opportunity to be remembered for something. Did you ever have that going into games of like feeling, I guess as a coach, did you feel that in the moment, or would you try to put that away and not worry about the true just gravity of everything around you?
I think, too, for me, having played on the 78 team that had the chance to win the national championship, and we didn't get it done against Alabama. We lost 14-7. And then to be able to come back and win it in 82, played for it again in 85 against Oklahoma, won it again in 86 against Miami, which, still may go down as the greatest game in Penn State history that night. I mean, that was a tremendous defense and led by a guy named Shane Conlon. And I always get a chuckle that the recruiting story of Shane Conlon is kind of legendary because nobody wanted him.
Yeah, well, why don't you tell us that? It was just signing day actually on Wednesday, so I think that's a great time. One of the Penn State greats, Shane Conlon. I know you were his recruiting area coach. What was that like trying to lock down Shane Conlon?
It wasn't very hard, to tell you the truth, because he was from Frewsburg, New York, a very small school, right across the Pennsylvania line up there. And I remember heard so much about him, and I liked him on film, but didn't get to see him live. I went up and actually saw him play basketball on a Friday night, and I'm like, man, he's athletic, and they're not a big school by any stretch of the imagination. Then, of course, I invited him up for a visit. He came up with his father. He ended up coming, and it was just one of those things. Then, when you got him, when he came into Penn State, we redshirted him as a freshman, but you could tell he was going to be something special. I mean, he really was but nobody recruited him. We were the only place that recruited him. So it was kind of neat. And then after I recruited Shane, I could have probably recruited anybody then because it was okay. But he made a difference. Obviously he played maybe one of the greatest bowl games of all time against Miami with the 2 interceptions, and on that effort, just really was off the charts that night.
Yeah, hopefully we got a guy similar to that plays a little bit of a different position. Once was a linebacker here at Penn State, but hopefully Abdul Carter could have. I think that's the type of impact.
He has the potential to do it, though. Yeah. He's a guy.
You would have loved to have Abdul Carter on your roster, huh? I mean, did they even make guys like that?
No kidding. Well, you can judge talent. Yeah, I like you. Wow.
I know. They need to make me a scout or something.
Yeah, they need to make you a scout.
Abdul Carter's good. Breaking news.
Wait a second. No, he's great.
That's true. He's great. He is the best pass rusher there is, and one defensive player of the year of the Big Ten, deservedly so.
And you have to keep an eye. That's one of the things you have to know where he is at all times. You cannot go. It affects passing games more than just his pass rush, because now you got to start chipping him. You got to have a back. You got to have a tight end. And it affects how you're going to attack Penn State. He makes it easier because somebody has to help.
Right.
Unless your tackle is just another first-round pick.
No, I don't think they have a tackle that can neutralize Abdul Carter. They're going to need a little bit of help out there to find a way to slow him down. Now, I do want to ask you.
And it affects offenses, believe me, because you're thinking about it. And you know what else it affects? That quarterback knows where he is, too.
He's got to find him at every moment. All right, we just had Georgia is going to win the SEC championship. So that opens the door wide open for Penn State. The thought was that if Texas wins, maybe Texas and Penn State both win. Texas could be number one. The door slammed shut on that. Now, if Penn State were to win tonight, they would be the number one team in America and Big Ten champs. So a lot on the line here, Scrab. Before we get out of here, we're going to have the game start here in probably about 10 minutes. I want to ask an Oregon team that is fast, explosive, really athletic. And I'm sure you've played in games where your players on your defense, you thought the opposing offense was a little more athletic, a little faster. How do you coach the guys up a little bit, make sure they're not, worried about those little things, and just say, go out there and play football? Did you ever have anything that you tell the defense, or how did you kind of go about that when realistically you kind of knew maybe they were a little outmatched physically?
Well, I don't think it's interesting, because there used to be a big saying at Penn State, Coach Paterno always had, take care of the little things and the big things will take care of themselves. So, if your fundamentals and you know what you're doing, and there's a lot more to the game than, people try to put all these X's and O's, but you know what? There's down and distance, formations, you study your opponent, you do those things, and you're looking for that little edge somewhere along the way. You're going to find it. And, there's certain things, if you study film and you played, you know that, oh, I know what's going on. Oh, that linebacker's coming. He cheated up about 6 inches. He's coming. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So you do learn a lot of little things along the way, and I think that's how you win these games, because everybody thinks it's the big things. It's not. The little things are what's going to win the game tonight.
You're absolutely right. It is. It's going to be the little things for Penn State. Can we find those little edges to edge out Oregon in this Big Ten championship? First time in the Big Ten championship since 2016. First time facing Oregon since this guy right here was on the sidelines all the way back in 1995. Listen, last time we played Oregon, it was a good outcome in the Rose Bowl. And if we win today,
that's because we had a heck of an offense.
Yeah.
I was actually, that offense was unstoppable that year. Those guys were off the charts. I think they made it a little bit easy for the defense that year, and that was one of those years when you'd start looking at the personnel that was on that team. It was pretty darn good.
Yeah, I'm sure having that offense to have your back after you say, we just got scored on. We need some help. And then 2 plays later, Jana Carter, see you later down the sideline, that type of thing. That is really,
well, I think they scored. I don't know how many times the first play of the game that year it was.
Oh my gosh!
I mean, it was.
I talked to Keith Conlon about the first play in the Rose Bowl, and he basically told me. Obviously, I know you were on defense, so you don't get in as much with the offensive tape. But
yeah,
you did. Okay, you were watching.
Yeah, you do.
So
you become a cheerleader.
Yes, right. Well, I guess the big thing that happened, he said we completely messed up the play. The offensive line did not block Kajana's first Rose Bowl play touchdown run at all correctly. Kajana broke a tackle, still went 80 yards, and the rest is history.
Well, the best thing about him, when he broke and no one was catching him.
Yeah.
He's a 4.3 guy. You're not going to catch him.
You're absolutely not. Hey, well, Tom, thank you so much for joining us today. We are at the We Are in Phillipsburg. Please stop by. If you want to stop by me, Tom Bradley, Pat Romano, who is running for Board of Trustees, we got a watch party going on here. So come on through. We got good food, alcohol. Stop by. Me and Tom be here hanging out, having some, I don't know what I'll be drinking. Something good, though. And calming the nerves, because we got Penn State kicking off here in about 5 minutes. Tom Bradley, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me on your show.
Absolutely. Over 1,000 people came through on this live stream. Really appreciate you guys. I will be live on Twitter at Landon Tangwall, live tweeting the game. So follow along. Appreciate you guys. Enjoy the game. We are.